Good evening, everybody. Before we open town meeting, I'm first going to take a moment just to thank the residents of Madison for voting for me for the last 18 years and for allowing me to serve you as your town clerk and treasurer. I've grown a lot as being in that position, and there are some things I'm going to miss, but I'm really excited about my next chapter of retirement. So I look forward to seeing everybody on the street somewhere, I'm sure. And but again, thank you very much for your votes in the past 18 elections. I really have appreciated it. To Mr. Ronald Moody, Constable for the Town of Madison in the County of Somerset, State of Maine. Greetings in the name of the State of Maine. You are hereby required to notify and warn the inhabitants of the Town of Madison in said county and state qualified by law to vote in town affairs to meet at the Madison Junior High Auditorium in said town on Monday, the 13th day on June 2022 AD at 7 o'clock in the evening. Then and there to act upon Article 1 and Articles 3 through 38 as set out below to wit. And to notify and warn said inhabitants to meet at the Old Point School Election Room in said town on Tuesday, the 14th day of June 2022, AD at 8 o'clock in the forenoon, then and there to act upon by secret ballot Article 2 as set out below. The polling hours, therefore, to be from 8 a.m. in the morning until 8 o'clock in the evening. Article 1, to choose a moderator to preside at said meeting. Do I hear any nominations for moderator?
Nominate Ernie Hilton. Go ahead.
Do I hear any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, Ernie Hilton has been nominated. Those wishing to vote, please cast your ballot. Okay, Ernie Hilton has been voted in as the moderator.
Yeah, you might be. It's reversed the other way, so I'm not Kathy Estes.
You're not. I, Kathy Estes, hereby certify that Ernie Hilton this day personally appeared before me at Madison, Maine, and took the following oath. I, Ernie Hilton,
I, Ernie Hilton,
do swear
do swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so long as I shall
so long as I shall
continue a citizen thereof.
continue a citizen thereof.
So help me God.
So help me
I, Ernie Hilton,
God. I, Ernie Hilton,
do swear
do swear
that I will faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
to the best of my abilities
to the best of my
the
abilities
duties incumbent upon me
the duties incumbent on me
as moderator of this meeting
as moderator of this meeting
according to the Constitution and laws of the state.
according to the Constitution and laws of the state.
So help me God.
You say?
Yes.
Not what you I believe we are going to be hearing something from Mr. Curtis, Town Manager.
Ernie, you've been doing this a long time. It's about time we got you some flowers. Kathy Estes, if you'd come up here just a second. Thought you got away with all your public fanfare. Kathy loves to be the center of attention, so I thought I'd bring her up here with me. So we have shared an office, if you will, for the last 10 years, and it has really been my pleasure to work with and come to know Kathy, not only as a trusted town official, but also a friend. And so thank you for all you've done, Kathy. I got you these flowers. I picked them out of my backyard. That's not true. But we would like to recognize you for 19 years of distinguished service as town clerk and town treasurer from 2003 to 2022. I know they already clapped for you once, but they'll do it again. Thank you. Good evening, folks. I just want to take a few minutes of your time just to go over the packet that we have prepared for tonight. Hopefully everyone has one. I made 75, which usually means I'll run out or I'll have 20 some left over. It looks like we have a good turnout tonight, and I thank you for that. Essentially, this packet kind of gives you some background information on some of the articles that will come up a little bit later. It has all of the articles in it on pages 1 through 9. There is a budget comparison, which compares the budget that we're finishing up this year with the proposed budget. That budget is about a 3.5% increase, which seems to be in line with other budgets that I've seen around the area, and probably not enough to keep up with inflation, but it's the budget that the Select Board and the Budget Committee have approved, and we will move forward with that as best as we can. We'll have some articles tonight about using ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act, otherwise known as COVID relief funds. There's some categories there that we'll talk about spending. There's an explanation page in the packet here. We've got 2 ordinance changes, and they're rather minor changes. One is on our handling money ordinance. The town created and the Select Board passed a purchasing and procurement policy in 2019, and that essentially replaces many of the antiquated things that are in the ordinance. So we're looking to change the ordinance to reflect the purchasing policy. The other ordinance we're asking to change is our fees ordinance. For many, many years, any fees that the town charged for small services had to go through town meeting for approval. The selectmen have been approving them over the last couple of years, and we want our practice to match the policy. So those are the 2 small ordinance changes. And then every year in this packet, we post the wages and benefits for staff at the town office and all staff throughout the town. Now, we just congratulated Kathy Estes for 19 years of service as town clerk and town treasurer. 18 of those were elected years. The Select Board has been going back and forth on this, and it's going to come up rather quickly here as one of the first articles as to see if the town folks at town meeting want to change the position of clerk treasurer from an elected position to an appointed position. There are pros and cons on both sides of this issue, and we understand that. It is a right as a voter to elect these positions. But it is a fact of our day and age that many small towns have gone away from these elected positions to appointed positions. To the clerk position, that has changed radically over the last 4 or 5 years. We used to have election day, where really the clerk was busy for a few days leading up to election. Now we have election seasons that span over 30 days in some cases. And that takes a lot of time, and it takes a dedicated person, also a person that's experienced and committed to understand that, and it's too important of a job, the Select Board believe, to leave it as an elected position. It would be more beneficial to the town if it were an appointed position. So we'll be discussing that. There's also a recommended change to the road commissioner's term. They're not asking to change the road commissioner from elected to appointed, but to extend the term from 1 year to 3. And partly because of the number of public works projects that are going to span 3 or 4 or 5 years, it's good to have some continuity in that position. So there'll be opportunities to have discussion on that once motions are made. And I want to thank you for coming out tonight. Don't forget to vote tomorrow at the Old Point School if you haven't voted already. Take care.
Good evening. How many of you can't hear me? Seriously, if any of you can't hear me, let me know. I'll just raise my voice a little more. We do have a microphone here. We'll see how that works. The first item of business I have here is, as usual, I need a motion to adopt the Maine Moderator's Manual, 6th edition, 2005, as the guidance for this meeting. Do I hear a motion? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards, all those opposed. It's a vote. Article 2, the town meeting warrant warning indicates that that's going to be handled tomorrow, so we don't need to have a motion to move beyond it. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to change the town clerk treasurer position from elected to appointed, said change to be effective at the 2023 annual town meeting. The select board recommends yes. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Hear a second? Yes. We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Yes.
I'd like to hear from, I hate to put her on the spot on her last night, but I'd like to hear from Kathy Estes on what her position is on this article.
That's good.
Kathy show.
And I'd like to thank Chris for allowing me to do this the last time. Because this is my favorite part of my job. Not. Actually, I have been elected for 18 years, and I'm going to tell you that I feel like in my position, I was nervous about having to go. I was appointed first, and I was very nervous about being elected. I didn't know how the town would accept me, and if I would be able to carry on after that. After the years, after like probably 3 or 4 years, I kind of enjoyed that I was elected. I felt like I was serving the residents of Madison. And I feel like because of that, sometimes I went over and beyond what was my duty. I wanted to make the residents happy. I wanted my job. And really and truly, it was my job to accomplish that and allow the residents to be able to elect who they wanted to run in that position. And I feel like if you do a good job, they will come out and they will vote for you. And if you don't do a good job, you won't get voted in, and they will find somebody to do the job for you. They'll find your replacement for you. And I was elected every year, and every year I was held accountable to the residents of Madison. And my personal opinion is, I still want to elect my town clerk and treasurer. That's how I feel, and I'm hoping tonight the town people will vote in that for the elected position to continue. I don't have any regrets that I was in an elected position. And I feel like you can do your due diligence. There's plenty of opportunities. If you take the initiative to do it, you will learn that job, and you will. If you want it bad enough, you will earn that, and you will do your due diligence to do all the training that is provided. It's all available at your fingertips. All you have to do is go out and search for it. There's trainings all the time. So again, I'm looking forward to being able to elect my town clerk in the future.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why it's come to the town meeting, why it's not going to be on a ballot in November for the whole town.
That was something that the select board discussed, and they asked me to look into the legalities, and the legalities of a town meeting vote hold just the same amount of weight as a referendum vote, although to your point, it's a smaller pool of people that are voting.
If it's changed to appointed tonight, how long is that person appointed for? Is it yearly or?
So, just to be clear, and I hope the wording of the article is clear, the vote here on Article 3 has no bearing on tomorrow's election between the two candidates. This wouldn't take place until 2023 town meeting. So if the voters voted to change from elected to appointed tonight, then when that appointment took place, it would be a hire as all the other employees of the town are hired. As the chief executive officer, the select board gives me the authority to hire people. But there are certain elements of the job that require yearly appointments. We appoint a tax collector, we appoint clerks and deputy clerks and that sort of thing. So the language from elected to appointed is probably, in layman's term, from elected independent of being hired by the town to a person that would be hired by the town.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Yes, sir.
Directed back to the town manager, you mentioned there are pros and cons. Could you elaborate more on what's the pros and what the cons are?
Well, I think the pros were very eloquently stated by Kathy, in that it's kind of been your right as citizens to vote for whom you want to represent you in that area, much like you do with school board, select board, other members. The cons, and I'm not sure if everyone's aware of this, maybe you are, there's no criteria to run for office anywhere in the state of Maine. You have to be a resident of Maine, you have to be 18, you have to be a legal citizen of the United States. That's the only criteria. So people that run for road commissioner, select board, school board, town clerk, they don't have to have any qualifications. These are extreme examples, but it's not outside the realm of possibility that a person could be elected as road commissioner that does not have a driver's license. And so there's no qualifications, no criteria. That's the cons of having elected positions. Plus, as I stated earlier, the concerns are the changing nature of the town clerk's position and the town treasurer's position. Not all towns have one person that is both the town clerk and the town treasurers, and their duties tend to be drifting apart over the years. So those are some of the concerns that the select board and I share.
Yes, sir.
Wasn't it 3 years ago, Mr. Curtis, that this was a referendum vote and it was voted down?
There was a referendum vote. I'm going to say it was probably 3 years ago, maybe sometime in 2017, 2018. And that was put on the ballot at the typical June elections, and I think it was probably voted down 2-1.
2-1.
Yeah.
So we brought it back up 3 more years, for what reason?
Well, I'll be frank. When you have a question like this as whether a position should be elected or appointed, it is hard to separate that position from the person. And so it's not a judgment on whether or not the existing town clerk has done a good job or a bad job, or the next one. And it's not a referendum on whether or not the road commissioner is doing a good job or a bad job. So with this change, when Kathy announced her retirement, she wouldn't be taking out papers, the board thought this would be a good time to see if this is something that the townspeople would want to do. Because we're not saying that we want to move Kathy from elected to appointed. We want to move this position from elected to appointed. So that's why it came up again.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
How would this position be appointed? What's the committee, how would it go about?
So typically when jobs are filled at the town office, I'm the one that oversees that process of putting out a job description and then a job opening and receiving applications. And then I usually use someone in the office from HR to sit and go through applications with interviews and so forth. And usually we try to find someone that has some background or bearing on this. For example, we've been looking for a code officer for quite some time. So when we interview code officer candidates, I lean on David Savage, who used to be a select board member here and is a code officer. So he comes in and helps with that search. In a case for a town clerk or town treasurer, I would look for someone maybe from the citizens or the select board that would have a little bit of expertise in finances and banking and that sort of thing. and those people would be part of a search committee, if you will. So the appointment process would not be much different than how we hire staff at the town office and town garage now.
So you have the only say?
No, I don't have the only say. I do have the authority from the select board to hire and fire, but I'm not the only person that takes the applications and looks at them and does the interviews.
Any other questions or comments or concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote.
What's your part?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
You're in the shed.
In this past few years, we've seen a lot of, heard a lot about the elections and election fraud and back and forth on that. And I know in the state of Maine, I think it's safe to say we have pretty good, clean elections. But isn't the position now as town clerk become much more complicated or involved with the election process and what's involved with that?
I think I'll refer to an article that was in the paper a couple of months ago in the fact that as you're leading up to a June election, which is a rather small turnout compared to a governor's election or presidential election in November, there's concern all across the state that there are not enough town clerks and there are not enough town clerks that have been experienced or certified or qualified. And so there's a lot of stress because the rules have changed, the requirements have changed. COVID had a lot to do with that, with opening up absentee voting to a stage that we've never seen before, that people are able to absentee vote, as often as 30 days before the election, and mail-in ballots, and there's a lot to get ready for as a clerk. And kudos to Kathy. She has always gone above and beyond to make sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed every election season. But I've watched as it has gotten more and more difficult over the years.
Any questions, comments, or concerns anymore? Yes.
So we moved to Madison about 16 years ago, and I've never lived in Madison prior to that. And coming here, we had elections, and I would go into the election just blind, not knowing any of these candidates. And I'm grateful for the time that I've gotten to know Kathy, and she's done a fantastic job. But there's been a lot of people that have come and are new to Madison that don't know the people that are running. And I think it's going to be, again, another, just shot in the dark, whoever they choose. So to have it be an appointed position, I think that's a really good way to make sure you're getting someone that knows what they're doing.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed. That's it, votes.
Yeah, I think
Did you agree that there was more in favor than opposed? That was a vote in affirmative. Motion passes. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to change the term of the elected road commissioner position from 1 year to 3 years. Said change to be effective at the 2023 annual town meeting. The select board recommends yes. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, we're going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed. That's a vote. Article 5. To see if the town will vote to pay the directors of the Department of Electric Works $10,200 for the ensuing year. Said sum to be paid from the funds of the department. Select board recommends yes. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to accept.
And we have a second.
Second.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down your cards. All those opposed. That's a vote. Article 6. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $11,200 to pay its select board. Advisory board recommends yes. This compensation is included under Article 8. Do I hear a motion? I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
And we have a motion, we have a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed? It's voted. Article 7. To see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to use up to $25,000 from undesignated revenue in the event of overdrafts, unforeseen events, or emergencies. Any use of this contingency arrangement must be voted on at a select board meeting, and the expenditures made will be listed in the subsequent town report. Total transfer of undesignated revenues shall not exceed $25,000 within the fiscal year. Transfer of undesignated revenues in excess of $25,000 must be authorized by a town meeting vote. Select board recommends yes. Advisory board recommends yes. Do I hear a motion? We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed? That's a vote. Article 8, to see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for the general government account in the general fund. This is an open question. Administration, $551,425. Planning board, $5,775. Code enforcement, $52,750. Boards and committees, $19,300. Assessing services, $42,500. Elections, $7,500, for a total expenditures of $679,250, of which $37,000 will be approved revenue from a TIF. For the total to be raised by taxation, $642,250, as recommended by the select board and the advisory board. Do I hear a motion?
That we approve the $642,250.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed? Article 9. To see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for public safety in the general fund. Ambulance, $80,500. Police, $480,000. Fire, $114,000. Animal control, $9,950, for total expenditures of $684,450, of which $25,000 would be approved revenue from a TIF, for a total to be raised by taxation, $659,450, as recommended by the select board and the advisory board. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion that we raise $659,450.
So you move the article as recommended.
As recommended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This is for public safety. Any questions, comments, concerns? Yes, Chris.
Is there any money in there from the ARPA funds to go towards the ambulance service for them working through COVID?
No, this is simply the amount that the ambulance service charges the town.
All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? Oh, yes, sorry.
Can you explain what we're getting for the $480,000 police service? What is that exactly?
So we are contracted with Somerset County, and Somerset County provides deputies to cover our area. The budget that we have allocated for this is similar to what we've paid over the last 5 years. However, law enforcement, like many other agencies, is having difficulty finding people. And we've had 2 open positions as Madison dedicated deputies that have been open for over a year, and we just haven't been able to fill them. So even though the budget number is going to stay fairly stable, the approach of the sheriff's office is going to change, and they're going to actually take deputies that are considered full county deputies and assign them to Madison so that we are able to get the police coverage that we're paying for.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed? It's a vote. Article 10, to see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for the public utilities account in the general fund. Streetlights, $64,000. Municipal solid waste and recycling, $275,000. Storm drains, $50,000. Fire protection, $260,000 for total expenses of $649,000, of which $40,000 is approved revenue from a TIF. Total to be raised by taxation, $609,000, as recommended by the Select Board and the Advisory Board. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Recommended amount.
So moved, the recommended amount. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed? Article 11, see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for the Public Works account in the general fund. Public Works, $683,050, of which $43,000 would be approved revenue from a TIF. Total raised by taxation, $640,050, as recommended by the Select Board and the Advisory Board. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we go with the select board recommendation.
So you're moving the recommended, you're so moved the recommended amount. Is that correct?
That's what I said.
You can't just move the dollar figure. You have to, there has to be a purpose for it. So it's easiest to just say so moved when you Article 11 for the recommended amount. All right, do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed? Yes. Article 12. To see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for the recreation account in the general fund. Select Board recommends $83,500, as does the Advisory Board. Do we hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So move what? The recommended amount, okay. And we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed? Article 13, to see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for the cemeteries in the general fund. Select Board and the Advisory Board both recommend $44,050. Do I hear a motion?
So moved, recommended amount.
Do we have a second?
Second.
That was perfect. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed? It's a vote. Article 14, to see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for community services in the general fund. General assistance, $17,500. Other community programs, we have U.S. Naval Sea Cadet Corps, $1,000. Lake Association, $5,500. American Legion Flag, $600. People Who Care Food Cupboard, $16,500. Recycling HHW, $1,000. Lakewood Theater, $5,000. St. Sebastian Cemetery, $1,000. Total of community programs is $30,600. Then other service organizations, Madison Anson Senior Citizens, $4,500. Somerset Humane Society, $7,650. Hospice Volunteers of Somerset County, $2,500. Spectrum Generations, $4,600. Total service organizations, $19,250. For a grand total of all these community services of $67,350. Of which there's $5,000 in approved revenue from a TIF related to Lakewood Theater. The amount recommended by the Select Board and the Advisory Board is $62,350. Do I hear a motion?
So moved, recommended amount.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Yes.
Why is there St. Sebastian Cemetery separated from the other cemetery account?
So the St. Sebastian Cemetery is not owned by the town, it's owned by St. Sebastian's Church. And we were approached, the Select Board was approached this year to see if they would contribute something to the costs of maintaining that cemetery. Now, the town can't contract with somebody to mow it, but the Select Board considered putting it here as a community donation to help with the cost of that.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. Call for a vote. Yes.
On the general assistance fund, that seems like a low amount to me. Do you even make it through the year on that, or do you run out of funds very quickly?
That amount used to be $15,000, and we've trended about $16,000 or $17,000 throughout the year. General assistance is really for those who have no other options. So there's other resources out there, KB Cap and other things that can help folks with heating oil and so forth. During COVID, the state received a ton of federal money, so we did not see nearly the amount of heating oil requests that we normally do because KB Cap was able to provide a lot of that.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? See, yes.
Why would you give more to the animal shelter than you would the senior citizens?
Well, the Humane Society sends out a bill based on your population to the towns that it serves. And there's a state statute that kind of requires that to be done. The Madison Senior Citizens is an individual program that's run by some very dedicated volunteers. And that budget basically goes to provide for their Tuesday meals at the VFW and bingo that people have had to be able to, have missed over the last couple of years due to COVID. In fact, they didn't even ask for their money last year because they didn't really spend that much. So I would say the Humane Society is something that is mandated by the state that every town try to participate in, and the Senior Citizens is really just a small program.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards, all those opposed. Article 15. To see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for the Madison Public Library in the general fund. Select Board and the Advisory Board recommend $122,935. Do I hear a motion?
So move, recommended amount.
Have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards, all those opposed. Article 16, to see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for town-owned property account in the general fund. Select Board and the Advisory Board both recommend $26,550. Do I hear a motion?
So move, recommended amount.
Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards, all those opposed. Article 17, to see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for road surfacing projects. Select Board and the Advisory Board both recommend $157,000. Do I hear a motion?
So move, recommended amount.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Yes.
Can we find out what some of the projects are?
We always try to under-promise and over-deliver. That's why there's only a dollar amount in there. But the road commissioner has targeted several projects this year to include part of Nickel Street right out here. And then a lot of this is going to be determinant on the cost of asphalt, which is going up every day. So there may be some places that the road commissioner has targeted that we won't be able to get to for budget reasons this year.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we're going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards, all those opposed. Article 18, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $115,000 from coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds, also known as the American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funds, received by the town from the federal government for road surface projects. The Select Board and the Advisory Board recommend yes. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion, we approve what's recommended by the select board.
We have a motion as written. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Mr. Moderator, I think I'll take this opportunity to better answer this gentleman's question. So we're targeted to do about $500,000 worth of paving this year, but it's going to come from various sources. So Article 17, which you just passed, it dedicates $157 of taxpayer dollars. This $115,000 is from the ARPA funds. We'll utilize this over in East Madison on a project on the Lower Mills Road. There are also TIF dollars that are under the discretion of the Select Board that will be used for work on Russell Road and Blackwell Hill Road this year. So we are covering about $500,000 worth of paving just in various sources of revenue.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards, all those opposed. Article 19, to see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for highway equipment purchases. The select board recommends $110,000, as does the advisory board. Do we have a motion?
So we'll recommend an amount. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns?
What's it for?
This money is going to be set aside to go toward a new, help me Jeff,
A rubber-tired excavator
rubber-tired excavator.
that we use throughout the summer, ditching our roads and prepping our roads for the pavement and any other various projects that are happening around town. The one we currently have is a late 1990s and very outdated, and it needs to be upgraded.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, can I call for a vote? All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards, all those opposed. Article 20, to see what sum the town will raise and appropriate for future fire department equipment purchases. Select board recommends $160,000, as does the advisory board. Do I hear a motion?
So we'll recommend an amount.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards, all those opposed. Article 21. To see if the town will vote to appropriate $50,000 from the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, also known as the American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funds, received by the town from the federal government for fire department equipment purchases. Both the select board and the advisory board recommend yes. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, call for a vote.
I thought that fiscal recovery was meant more for either helping people get hired on positions or preventing COVID.
So there are several categories that the ARPA funds can be used for. Primarily what the town of Madison is using them for is to make up for the loss of revenue over the last couple of years. And part of this $50,000 is to go towards the completion of a fire truck purchase that we've been working on for several years to replace that. But you are correct. Helping people that have been businesses and individuals and other entities is certainly allowed for by these ARPA funds.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards, all those opposed. Article 22, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $35,000 from the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, also known as the American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funds, received by the town from the federal government for a small business matching grant program. The select board recommends yes, as does the advisory board. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed. Article 23, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $60,000 from the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, also known as the American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funds, received by the town from the federal government for town property renovations. Select board recommends yes, as does the advisory board. Do you hear a motion? We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none. Did you call for?
You're just ready to raise that card.
You had the momentum going. Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed. It's voted. Article 24, to see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for sidewalk maintenance. Select board recommends $50,000, as does the advisory board. Do I have a motion?
So we'll recommend an amount.
We have a motion and a
Second.
second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards, all those opposed. It's a vote. Article 25, to see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for cemetery repair. Select board recommends $50,000, as does the advisory board. We have a motion.
So we'll recommend an amount.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards, all those opposed. Article 26, to see if the town will vote to use $400,000 from the undesignated fund balance to offset taxes. The select board recommends yes, as does the advisory board. Do I hear a motion? So moved. We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Yes, sir.
What do we have for total fund?
So every year on June 30th, we take a look at that from our audit. Our current balance in our undesignated fund balance is about $1.6 million.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Of that, how much do you have to hold on to?
I don't believe the town has any policy or charter that requires an amount. In fact, in the scary days, which we referred to, the closure of Madison paper, we had that down into under $400,000. And so we like to keep at least 20% of our budgets in undesignated fund balance.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Yes, Chris.
Is that the same as your designated fund balance?
What's the question?
Is that your same as designated fund balance? Do you have a checking account more than 1.6 million or 1.2?
During the year, that fluctuates up and down, but yes. Right now, as of today, it's probably more than $1 million.
What do you see what the carryover, what do you think the carryover money will be from this year's budget? What's projected?
So how much we will spend, because Tammy, Carey, and I have been looking at this. We had roughly a $3.5 million budget this year. We're going to spend about $3.4 million. So we're only going to have about $100,000 left over from this budget. Fortunately for us, though, Maine revenue sharing has been higher than anticipated, so that gives us a little cushion.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed. It's approved. Article 27. See if the town will vote to allocate the balance of the snowmobile excise tax fund to the Abenaki Snow Rider Snowmobile Club. Select board recommends yes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There you have a motion. How about a second?
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Do you know what that balance is?
Roughly, it depends on the number of registrations during the year, but roughly we get a refund from the state somewhere around $1,800. We used to have a separate article on town meeting warrant where they would get $1,500, but then they have to wait for that refund to come in, and sometimes it'd be higher, sometimes it's lower. So it's simpler, and other towns have gone to this, just to simply state we'll pass it through.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? If not, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed. It's a vote. Article 28, to see if the town will vote to authorize the tax collector to accept prepayment of taxes for the year 2023-2024, not yet due or assessed. The select board recommends yes. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed. It's a vote. Article 29, to see if the town will vote the date of September 15, 2022, or 30 days after commitment, whichever is later, as the date when the first one-half of taxes assessed for the current year shall become due and payable, and the date of March 15, 2023, when the second one-half of taxes assessed for the current year shall become due and payable, with taxes unpaid after said dates to bear interest at a rate of 4% per annum from said dates. Select board recommends yes. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second, I think. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed. Article 30. This is my favorite one. To see if the town will vote to authorize the tax collector to enter into a standard agreement with residential taxpayers establishing a tax club payment plan for property taxes whereby 1. The taxpayer agrees to pay specified monthly payments to the town based on his or her estimated and actual tax obligations for the current year property taxes. 2, the town agrees not to charge interest on timely payments made pursuant to the tax club agreement. 3, the town authorizes the collector to accept tax club payments for current taxes which may be due prior to the commitment of those taxes. 4, the agreement is automatically terminated if a scheduled payment is late, and the taxpayer then becomes subject to the same due dates and interest dates and rates as other taxpayers who are not participating in a tax club. 5, only taxpayers who do not have any outstanding tax obligations for prior tax years are eligible to participate in the tax club program. And 6, taxpayers wishing to participate in the tax club for a particular property tax year shall enter into an agreement with the town by a publicly advertised deadline determined by the tax collector. The select board recommends yes. Do I hear a motion? So moved. Second. We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed. It's a vote. Article 31, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to advertise and sell town-owned personal property at public sale. The select board recommends yes. Do I hear a motion? We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed. It's a vote. Article 32, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to dispose of tax-acquired property in any manner that the selectmen deem to be in the best interest of the town. The select board recommends yes. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed. Article 33, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to set all wages and salaries for the coming year, except for those already provided for. Select board recommends yes. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those big question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Wouldn't they already be set if we're voting on the budget now?
There are a number of lines in the budget that are for positions that are currently empty and currently not filled. So it's not unusual to have a budget be passed and then a hire be made, and the selectmen have the authority to determine what that wage would be.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? My apologies to the general. Being none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed. Article 34, to see if the town will vote to authorize the town manager, under the direction of the select board, to apply for grant monies and to expend monies received for the stated grant purposes. Select board recommends yes. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed. It's voted. Article 35, to see if the town, in accordance with 36 MRSA section 506A, will vote to fix the rate of 1% interest to be paid on overpaid or abated taxes. Select board recommends yes. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed, it's a vote. So Article 36, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to accept any money or property, real or personal, from any donor, and such money or property shall be utilized as specified by the donor. Select board recommends yes. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed, it's a vote. 37, shall an ordinance entitled Expenditure of Public Funds, Chapter 572, be amended? Select board recommends yes.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Yes.
Amended to what, from what?
So that's on page 12 in your packet if you have one. Essentially, we're recommending amendments, the board's recommending amendments to two sections, section 572.6, section 572.9, mainly because this is duplicative. There's the same wording in both the town's purchasing policy that was established in 2019 and here. And so we want to make this ordinance refer to the purchasing policy. The competitive bidding recommendation is if you have a project of more than $5,000, it should be sent out to competitive bid. That is a part of our purchasing policy. And so that language is being stricken and replaced with reference to the Town of Madison purchasing policy.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed, it's a vote. Article 38. Shall an ordinance entitled Fees, Chapter 583, be amended? Select board recommends yes. So moved. We have a motion and a second. Do we hear any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed, it's a vote. Now I need a motion to recess this meeting to Tuesday, June 14th at 8 a.m. at the Old Point Avenue Election Room to take up Article 2. We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards, all those opposed. That is a vote.
Thank you much, Ernie.
Thank you.